everyone, and welcome to the Women's Football Review. My name is Samara, and I am the ambassador for Her Game 2, which we will talk about later in the show. So the idea behind the show is to just discuss the fixtures over the weekend. Unfortunately, this weekend there has been a lot of postponements due to COVID, frozen pitches, and to discuss big news in the women's game. So I've been a Manchester City fan all my life, but I've only recently, over the past couple of seasons, really started getting into women's football. And it's a shame that it took me to the age of about 23 to start finding my love for the women's game. But that's because, unfortunately, the women's game hasn't been promoted enough. But hopefully now we're going to get somewhere and we're going to get the women's game to the level that it needs to be. So, big news this weekend in women's football, or over the past week. We have the Glentoran captain, Jessica Foy, has become the first ever female player to sign a professional contract with a club in Northern Ireland. And this is massive. She has said herself that this is a significant starting point in the next stage of development in the women's game in Northern Ireland. And her contract represents the start of a process of professionalising the Northern Ireland women's squad, who will compete in the Women's Euros for the first time in England in July. So this is massive news. The first ever female player in Northern Ireland to sign a professional contract. We also have Rebecca Welsh, who was the first female referee to take charge of an FA Cup third round draw over the weekend on Saturday, Birmingham versus Plymouth Argyle. And this is incredible. And unfortunately, we have seen some comments. She reffed a game in the week before the FA Cup draw, and these comments were relating to her gender. But what we want to say is give criticism, talk about the game, say that, oh, I don't think she made the right decision, but we need to take talking about somebody's gender out of it. And also a 33-year-old female referee. Her name is Salima, and she will be the first woman ever to officiate in the Africa Cup of Nations, which I just think is incredible. That is such big news. Women are doing incredible things in football, and the women's game is really stepping up to the level that we need it to be. So I'm just going to have a look at what I've written about the fixtures this weekend. So we'll talk about the Women's Super League first. So for the fixtures this weekend, Birmingham City started off this weekend having only picked up 1 point in 10 games this season. So they really needed the 3 points. Darren Carter said he wanted the team to show their strength against Arsenal. Steph Houghton has been out with an injury for Manchester City. Unfortunately, she is starting to return to the team, but she was unlikely to feature in the game this weekend. And City are still without their goalkeepers, Ellie Roebuck and Karen Bardsley. Leicester City have unfortunately been severely impacted by COVID as well. So if we have a look at the fixtures this weekend, oh, thank you. I'm so nervous, so it's really nice to see positive comments. And thank you for joining. That's amazing. So this weekend, thank you so much. This weekend, Brighton lost 6-0 to Manchester City. Hayley Raso has scored 3 goals in her last 3 games for Manchester City. Oh, thank you. And Manchester City have become the second side to score 6+ goals in the second half of a Women's Super League match. Oh, hi, Realist. The only City fan I can stand. Amazing. I love that. Oh, you are the second United fan I can stand. Actually, I don't mind United fans. So Manchester City beat Brighton 6-0 this weekend. So that has taken Manchester City 5th in the Women's Super League table, and it has taken Brighton 7th. So that was a massive, massive 3 points for Manchester City. They have struggled this season so far due to injury. And with Steph Horton returning, that is a massive, massive result. Let's move on to only the third City fan I know. City fans, we are everywhere, but yeah. I know quite a few United fans. My boyfriend's a Manchester United fan, so it makes our household quite tense at times. Let's move on to Birmingham versus Arsenal. So Birmingham, like I said before, they needed to win. Birmingham had only got 1 point so far this season and was smack bang at the bottom of the table. And Birmingham took a shock early lead in this game with Libby Smith scoring in the 3rd minute. And the game finished 2-0 to Birmingham. This is a massive, massive result. Arsenal are flying this season. So this is a massive, massive result for Birmingham. It's their first win of the season and has actually taken them 2nd from bottom. So that is massive. Moving on to Reading versus Leicester. That was a 1-0 win for Reading. So Reading did go 1-0 up in this game. And there was a missed penalty by Dowie in the 30th minute, which could have actually given Reading the 2-0 lead. Oh, good evening. Hi. Thank you so much for joining. I was so nervous, so that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining. So, yeah, Reading did miss a penalty in the 30th minute, and that could have taken them 2-0, but in the end, didn't matter. Didn't make a difference. Reading won that 1-0. So if we have a look at the Women's Super League table. Oh, thank you for joining. This is amazing. This is great. We'll have a look at the Women's Super League table. I'll just check what I've written. Oh my gosh, I had an eye test today. I'm absolutely, definitely still blind. So we've got Arsenal still flying at the top of the table. Manchester City, like I said, have moved into 5th, which is incredible. Arsenal, oh my goodness. I was checking that score. I know this is a women's football review, but we love a giant being killed off. Can we call them a giant? Yeah, let's call them a giant. We love a giant being killed off, in the FA Cup. That is a massive, massive result. Let's move on to the FA Women's Championship. So there were, Rich. This is Crystal Palace Women. The game, I was speaking to Rich before. The game was called off, was it 40 minutes before kickoff? So you've got fans, you've got players that have travelled just for the game to be called off for a frozen pitch. Now, I want to raise awareness for this because I know that it does happen in the men's Premier League. I know that it does happen. But if you look at lower league football and you do look at women's football, games are getting called off when fans have travelled, when players have travelled. And it's just not good enough. It just shows, like me and Rich were saying before, it just shows a lack of care for the women's game, for the fans as well. Because calling off a game 40 minutes before kickoff in any football is not okay. It's absolutely not okay. So Sunderland versus Crystal Palace Women was called off. And there have been loads of cancellations this weekend, postponements, because of pitches, a lot of waterlogged pitches, which again, I think once women's football gets to the level it needs to be, obviously the more money that's pumped into the game, the less this will happen. And obviously COVID is also a big, big impact on a lot of these games. But let's have a look at the games that did go ahead. Blackburn versus Liverpool. United in the top 4 might need to stop watching the men's team. I did say that. I did say that to my boyfriend. He should go and watch the women's team. They're doing a lot better. So Blackburn versus Liverpool, massive game, a 6-0 win to Liverpool. Liverpool are now 5 points clear in the Championship, which is a massive, massive, massive points clearance for them. Can't do as well in the Premier League, can they? But yeah, so Blackburn lost 6-0 today, and it leaves Blackburn in 10th. Okay, so massive game for them, 6-0. And we had Charlton versus Sheffield United, 0-0 draw, nothing much happening. Charlton are sat in 6th, and Sheffield United are in 8th. Oh, yeah, thanks, guys, for the positive comments. Yeah, and it is just about lack of funding for the women's game. Because when there's results like this, yeah, it is a lack of funding, a lack of care, a lack of education as well, and a lack of knowledge. Because I remember when I was in school talking about football, no one really spoke about the women's game. No one talked about the women's game at all. And yeah, there's Charlton and Sheffield United, 0-0. Nothing much happened there at all. And they were the only 2 games that actually went ahead this weekend in the Championship. So if we look at the table, I've got it up in here as well because I am very blind. So Liverpool, sitting 5 points clear at the top of the table. Durham in 2nd. London City Lions, they were supposed to play today. That was postponed. They were supposed to play Watford. And then Crystal Palace Women in 4th. And that game obviously was called off 40 minutes before kickoff. My standout player so far this season for the women's game has to be Hayley Raso for Manchester City, because she scored, like I said before, 3 goals in her last 3 games. She is flying this season. And my all-time favourite women's player, I know you didn't even ask that question, but is Steph Houghton, because I just think she is incredible. What she has done for the women's game, like everyone knows her name. She is a massive, massive player. Okay, let's go on to the Northern Premier, the Women's Northern Premier. Again, loads of postponements. So there were 3 games that went ahead this weekend. We had Middlesbrough versus Burnley, and that ended in a 3-1 win for Burnley ladies. What also needs to change for me? So you've got the Women's Premier and the Northern and the Southern, and you can't get match reports on the Sky Sports app for these games, and your final score doesn't come up until the final whistle. So I think that definitely needs to change as well. So Middlesbrough versus Burnley ended in a 3-1 win for Burnley. We also had West Brom and Stoke that ended in a 1-0 win for West Brom. And AFC Fylde won 2-0 against Loughborough. So the table for the Northern Premier, we've got Derby County in top of the table, 3 points clear. Then Fylde Ladies, which is very close to home for me. Yeah, you literally can't get any details about the Northern and the Southern Premier, and that's got to change. That just shows you the lack of care, really, and the lack of funding in the women's game. Can get the top 2 leagues, but the Northern and the Southern are so hard to get match reports, to find out any information about the games, obviously, unless you're a fan of those teams. And that's a big shame, because there's women out there who are incredible and they're getting good results, and they deserve to get the same kind of limelight. And then you've got Wolverhampton in 3rd and Nottingham Forest in 4th in the Women's National League Northern Premier. Yeah, my eyesight is so bad. Okay, let's move on to the Women's Southern Premier. So the show today won't be as long as normal, but I'm hoping, if people are enjoying the show, which I hope you are, even though I might be a bit nervous, to get guests on. So I'm going to talk about Her Game 2 after. So I'm hoping to get the Her Game 2 girls involved. And I have quite a few friends who do follow the women's game as well, trying to get more people involved, get guests on. get people who want to learn about the women's game as well, because I think that's really important. I think it literally is just lack of education, because I'm a teaching assistant and I know, oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're loving it. I know there's girls in my class who love football, but there's no one to really take them seriously. And it's a shame, because obviously you've got your girls' teams when you're in school, but it's a shame. It's just lack of education and lack of funding. Yeah, big up Rich. He is amazing. Like, I have literally no idea about technology. He's working behind the scenes, and just to give me this platform to be able to promote the women's game is amazing. So we are looking at I've just got a message in the Her Game 2 chat. Amazing. We love it. The Women's Southern Premier. Okay, so there are 3 games on this weekend. And Cardiff City versus Plymouth Argyle was a big scoring game. 5-1 that finished to Plymouth Argyle. And we had Ipswich Town and Portsmouth. It was a 1-1 draw. And MK Dons beat Hounslow Women 5-0. So MK Dons ladies beat Hounslow Women 5-0. So if we look at the table, you've got Ipswich sitting at the top of the table. I'm trying to do my maths. By a massive 6-point lead. That's a massive lead. Then we've got Oxford United in 2nd, Southampton in 3rd, and Bridgewater in 4th. So MK Dons ladies are down the bottom at 11th, even though they had that big 5-0 win. And Hounslow women have got a total of 0 points so far this season. So they have got a lot of work to do. So they're sitting 14th. My favourite women's team is obviously Manchester City. But I would have to say I do have a soft spot for Crystal Palace women now because of Rich. And I'm just fuming. I can't get over that. Calling off a game 40 minutes before kickoff. Honestly, I'm going to be talking about that all the time. Oh, thank you very much. That, honestly, I was so nervous. I actually know nothing about technology or anything like that. Okay, so they're the results this weekend. So unfortunately, there has been lots of postponements. And it was just what I was saying before. The COVID thing, that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but we can accept games being called off for COVID. But we've got waterlogged pitches, frozen pitches, things that should not be happening in football and in the women's game. Why are we still getting waterlogged pitches, frozen pitches? Even in the Championship, so like I said, the Sunderland Crystal Palace women's game, a frozen pitch. We've got waterlogged pitches happening. This should not be happening, but it's happening because of lack of funding. So we really need to raise the women's game up to a high level. So having someone like Rebecca Welsh reffing an FA Cup 3rd round tie is massive. But I do want to talk about some of the negative things that I have seen. So we were talking in the Her Game 2 group chat about people, and I did say this at the beginning of the show, saying that international team, it will be England. Absolutely. England. And that's why I absolutely adore Steph Houghton, because she is a massive player for England and Manchester City. Yeah, England and Manchester City are my 2 women's teams. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, we were talking in the Her Game 2 group chat about the comments about Rebecca Welsh and them saying, oh, she can't do it because she's a woman. She can't do it because she's this. Fair enough if she makes a decision you don't agree with, because we're all football fans here. We've all had issues with referees, issues with things, but you never really hear in you never hear in the men's game. You never hear them saying, oh, well, the ref made the wrong decision because he's a man. And that's one of the things that we are trying to tackle at Her Game 2. And we did get some comments saying, oh, what you're saying that it's okay to be horrible, or it's okay to say things. We're not saying that, but what we're saying is no abuse is tolerated. But our personal job is to tackle abuse that's directed to someone due to their gender. So what we're saying is, yeah, you might not have agreed with Rebecca Welsh's decisions. It's not, yeah, exactly. It's just ignorance. Comments like, oh, she should be in the kitchen, not refereeing a game. Well, if I go in the kitchen, everyone's getting food poisoning. But it's just tackling comments and criticism that's around her gender. Yeah, she might have not had a good game. We can't always be at the top of our game, but it's not because she's a woman. And that is the message we're trying to send out. So let's talk about Her Game 2. Her Game 2 is a massive, massive campaign created by some incredible women. And our job is to tackle the sexism in football. So I've never really, you have to really think about it. So I've never really experienced high levels of sexism when I've been watching Manchester City. But that's because I've always been to football with my mum. So my mum used to take me to football, and it's always been me and my mum. And I never saw it any other way, really. But then when you really look, I've had comments like, oh, you wouldn't understand. Or, oh, you probably don't remember. Or, oh, you won't know that. Or you probably didn't see that game. Just assuming that I've either don't go to games, or I'm not interested in football, or I don't understand football, anything like that. And Her Game 2 is created, or has been created, because we need to get rid of this sexism in football. So football is such an incredible game, but it should be a safe space too. And there are unfortunately lots of instances of women being groped, being touched, having horrible comments said to them. And even things like football chants is a big one to tackle, because we get a lot of comments saying, oh, but it's just part of football. Oh, it's just part of football. I hate to bring him up, but Benjamin Mendy. So we all know about the Benjamin Mendy situation. There have been chants going round about Benjamin Mendy. Obviously, every time someone plays City, a chant in particular that she said no. And it's about getting people to think you could be sat next to someone, or there could be somebody 5 seats away from you that's experienced assault or something really difficult has happened to them, and you're singing those songs. And it's just about, that's not now a safe space for that woman or man. Realist, do you think in the near future it can change and be in a better place for women? I absolutely do. I really do. And the fact that we've got so many guys watching this show, that just gives me hope, because you might love women's football and follow women's football, but like Rich even said to me, he's gone in the background today doing all the amazing tech because he wants to learn. And you guys just logging on and listening about Her Game 2, wanting to know more, shows me that there are people that want to learn. So, and I think things can change. I think we've got a long way to go in regards with the women's game getting to the same kind of stature and grandeur as the men's game. But I think for fans, we've had a lot of reports through to Her Game 2 from male fans as well, who are saying, oh, I heard this, or I heard this, or this chant was sung, and they're not happy with it and they don't like it. And that gives me a lot of hope. Even though it's a bad thing that they've had to report it, it gives me a lot of hope that things are going to change. And it is just about thinking yeah, chants are part and parcel of football, but chants about rape, chants about women are just not okay. And they don't need to be in the game. They've been normalized in the game because nobody's called them out. Education is key to unlock knowledge. Exactly. And it's clear with a lot of people. Exactly. That's what it is. That's all it is. Education is lacking. I don't hate anybody. I would rather somebody say to me, actually, I did join in this chant, but now hearing you talk about it, I actually realised why I shouldn't have. And I'd rather somebody say that to me than completely ignore the situation. Because even me as a woman, like a few years ago, it wasn't so long ago that schools only had boys' football teams. Yeah, exactly. And we're thinking, right, we're in 2022 now. And like you've just said, it wasn't so long ago that schools only had boys' football teams. And it's not okay, because there will have been a girl in that class that loves playing football and wanted to play football, and there was just nothing for her. Because all she's seeing then, even if nobody says it, even if nobody says to her, oh, no, it's not for women, that's what she's getting told. Without words, that's what she's getting told, because there's no team for her to go in. No one's talking to her about football. Yeah, we just spoke about it, didn't we? Yeah, I definitely think it can change. And I think it will change. And like I said, you guys logging on and wanting to know more about the women's game. But even if people don't want to know about the women's game, but they want to know what they can do to make the women that go to football when they go and watch the men's game feel more comfortable, that is amazing. Because I have felt uncomfortable at times, because it's always about what a female football fan looks like, what she wears, and things like that. And it's just like, no, we're there to watch the football as well. And her game too it's going to be massive. It already is massive, but it is going to be massive. So I don't know if you saw, but Everton were the first Premier League club to join and form a partnership with her game too, which is amazing. What we are hoping is that now Everton have joined, more and more Premier League teams will join. And it's also important that the men's teams join as well. So it's great to get the women's teams as well. But because the men's game is so big, the men's games supporting her game too will just take it to that next level. So my role, it's education. It's all about education. Education is absolutely lacking. And like I said, I'm not bothered if people don't want to watch women's football, because you don't have to watch everything. But like I said, like about the thing about the chants, I've got friends, male friends, that have said, oh yeah, I have joined in them chants, because I never thought that by singing that horrible Benjamin Mendy chant that there could be a woman or a man sat next to me that's experienced some sort of assault. It's just about thinking and education. Where I felt enough is enough. Oh, with like the sexism in football. Yeah, I think I can remember it now, actually. I think it was Everton away I was at. I don't know why I want to say Everton away. I think it was. Let's just go with that. I think it was Everton away, and I go home and away with Manchester City. Unfortunately, at the minute, well, not unfortunately, I've got a job as a dance teacher, so obviously I work Saturdays 9 till 3. So Saturdays are a bit of a write-off for me, but I did used to go home and away. And I remember we were talking about, I can't remember what we were talking about. I think we were talking about the Yaya Toure goal to win us our first trophy. First. And oh, what a day. And I can't remember what happened. It was a guy, and he can't have been much older than me. And because I was in year 10, I want to say. So how old are you in year 10? About 15? And he said something to me, and it was just so rude. It was something like, oh, you wouldn't remember. Oh, you probably don't know. And it was basically along the lines of, you're not a proper football fan. You don't know anything about football. You have no clue. And then he was really rude to my mum as well. And at 15, it put me off, and it made me think, I don't want to go to football anymore. And then I did go through a period of time where I actually didn't go to football, because I was like, I don't want to be in that environment. No one takes me seriously. I remember the boys at school used to be like, oh yeah, but you're not a proper City fan. Oh, you don't really understand football. Just like you put the shirt on and you say you're a fan. And men and women do that. But yeah, it was that moment, because it just made me feel so small, and like you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know football kind of thing. And then it was like, yeah. And then a few years after that, I was like, no, I want to go back to football. I want to get back involved. I want to go home and away. And enough is enough. Things need to change. And that's what the incredible girls of Her Game 2, that was created after a lot of abuse and a lot of sexism was seen at football games. And everyone has experienced it that I've spoke to involved in Her Game 2. All of us have experienced or read or seen some form of sexism. And it's just, if you scroll through the comments on the Rebecca Welsh post, you scroll through the comments, you can see them. And people just say it like it's normal and it's natural and it's not okay. And not enough people call it out either. And I think that for me is a big one. Like, if you're at a football game and you hear something sexist, a lot of people stay quiet because they don't want to cause trouble or they don't want to get into an argument. But the only way it's going to change is if we call it out. I just love football. So women, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We all go to football because we love football. Some days we hate it. Some days we love it. I loved it when Yaya Toure scored that goal in the FA Cup final. And I hated it when Liverpool won the league. But we're all there because we love football. And that's it, realist. We're all there because we love football. And everyone should be respected. And I think having Everton join Her Game 2 is going to be massive. And my role, I'll just talk about that a little bit. My role as Manchester City ambassador is to see if I can create a relationship between Her Game 2 and literally the only time I am friends with United fans is when I'm talking about Liverpool. But I do that all the time. My boyfriend will say that. I'm always talking about Liverpool because they do cause me stress at the minute. But yeah, that's something I've got in common with United fans. But yeah, my job is to try and get a relationship with Manchester City, and I'll be going to City games, and I'll be like a kind of like port of call for City fans who do experience sexism, because they might not feel comfortable reporting it on the website, or they might not feel comfortable speaking to a steward about it. But if they've got my Twitter and they know that I'm involved with Her Game 2, they can drop me a message and things like that. And we're just really, really pushing now to create relationships and get us out there as much as we can, because Her Game 2 is literally such an incredible campaign. And in our like WhatsApp group, the support levels are amazing. It's just girls who love the game, like you said, realist. We love football, and we talk football. Like on New Year's Eve, we all sent pictures in of what we were doing for New Year. I'm like a humble City fan. Oh yeah, I am. Like, I'm loving life as a City fan at the minute. But I remember being at Main Road when I was 3 years old, crying in the Kippax, wet through. And when I was older than that, and it was just rubbish. And I'm just loving these times. But like, when I was on your show the other day, and Rich and you asked me like the top 4, it pains me to say Man City, because I've been a City fan now for 25 years, and I don't want to say it because typical City could appear at any point. And it was just great as well, like Rich like having me on the show, and it didn't feel like, I think sometimes when you're a woman and you talk football with guys, they talk down to you, or they don't let you have an opinion because they think you don't know anything about football. Or they say things like, oh, you only like football because you fancy the players and things like that. And a lot of them comments happen to me a lot, because I do have Jack Grealish as one of my Fitbit backgrounds. But, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I don't love football. I don't know football. And I think that's a big thing. People think that girls that like football only like it because of the players. But we do love football, and being on your show, your fan calling show, it just felt amazing because no one spoke down to me. Everyone listened to me. Like, we had actual banter conversations about football, and I didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm the only girl here. It didn't make me feel like that, and that's how it should be. And what we want with Her Game Too is to create a safe space at football, so that women can just go to football and feel comfortable and feel safe. And it's the same, and it's the same as, like, obviously trying to kick racism out of football, and we're focusing on the sexism, and we definitely want to make that clear. Like, when we're not ignoring everything else, but our main focus is to kick the sexism out of football. So if you follow, before I leave, I was like, this is going to be short, and it's nearly been 45 minutes because I just talk a lot. So Her Game Too. Get following Her Game Too on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We also have merchandise, Hope and Glory Sportswear. We are in a partnership with, and you can get men's and women's merchandise. And we've also got our own football shirt, which is pretty cool. We've got a Her Game Too football shirt, which is amazing. And if you could all just like follow Her Game Too, retweet us, like shout us out if you can, because we're all working so hard. And like you all just said, it's just about education. Oh, guys, thank you. And my Twitter is SRJ_dance, because I am a dance teacher as well. It was supposed to be a professional dancer's Twitter, but I've decided to do something different with my career, but I'm just going to keep the name. And I am _Samara Ruth Jasmine on Instagram. And I do just talk about Man City all the time. And I think it was Rich called me a troll on Twitter because our game didn't get called off against Swindon. And it is a champion's mentality. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And hopefully this can be a weekly thing, and I will be a lot less nervous. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Can't wait for the next show. I love it. And I'll be less nervous next time. And I'm going to try and get more of the Her Game Too girls involved and more guests. And we'll talk about the news, what's happening in the women's game, any big news, like we had the refereeing for the Africa Cup of Nations and the FA Cup. And we'll do fixtures, results, and then we'll always talk about Her Game Too. Oh, thank you so much. Great show. Oh, did a stellar job. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I couldn't even tell I was nervous. Oh my God. I can't. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you very much. And I will see you all next week.